In the dim haze of pre-dawn, Private Elias Thorne huddled in the sodden trench, his breath forming fleeting clouds in the chill Normandy air. It was July 12, 1944, over a month since the Allied forces had stormed the beaches in the largest amphibious invasion in history, turning the sands of Omaha and Utah into blood-soaked memorials. Elias, a lanky 19-year-old from the sun-baked plains of Kansas, had enlisted with dreams of heroism fueled by radio broadcasts and recruitment posters. Back home, he'd wrestled hay bales and chased storms across endless fields. Now, he wrestled with fear in a foreign land where every shadow could hide death. His uniform, caked with mud from days of relentless rain, clung to his skin like a second, unwelcome layer. The M1 Garand rifle in his hands felt heavier than ever, its 8-round clip a fragile promise of survival amid the chaos. The platoon Company B of the 29th Infantry Division had been pinned down for hours by this particular German bunker complex, a formidable Wehrmacht stronghold dubbed Fortress Hill by the GIS, perched atop a rocky escarpment overlooking the Boca Gu countryside. It was a labyrinth of reinforced concrete pillboxes interconnected by trenches, bristling with machine guns, mortars, and anti-tank weapons. The Nazis had fortified it with layers of barbed wire, minefields, and overlapping fields of fire, turning any approach into a suicide run. Artillery barrages from Allied howitzers had pockmarked the hill, sending plumes of earth skyward. But the bunkers held firm, their thick walls absorbing the punishment like ancient monoliths. Elias' squad had already lost Sergeant Wilkins to a sniper's bullet earlier that morning, and Private Omley lay groaning nearby, his legs shredded by shrapnel, waiting for a medic who might never come. Captain Harlan, a battle-hardened officer from Boston with a jaw like chiseled granite and eyes that had seen too many dawns like this, barked orders from his makeshift command post, a shallow foxhole reinforced with sandbags. His voice cut through the sporadic crackle of distant gunfire. "Listen up, you sorry lot. Intel says there's a company of SS bastards in there, dug in deep. We've got to crack this nut before the Panzer S roll in. Flamethrower team takes point. Reyes, you're up. The rest of you, provide cover. Suppress those slits and keep their heads down. We take the bunker, or we don't go home." The men nodded grimly, exchanging glances that spoke volumes of unspoken fears. Elias swallowed hard, his mouth dry as cotton, and checked his ammo pouches for the umpteenth time. The flamethrower unit was a sight both inspiring and terrifying. Sergeant Miguel Reyes, a compact powerhouse from the dusty barrios of San Antonio, Texas, led the team. At 25, he was already a legend in the company for his unflinching courage under fire. Strapped to his back was the M2 flamethrower, an engineering marvel turned instrument of apocalypse. Twin cylindrical tanks holding 9 gallons of thickened gasoline napalm's precursor pressurized by nitrogen cylinders. The whole rig weighed nearly 70 pounds, turning Reyes into a walking bomb, vulnerable to any stray bullet that might puncture the tanks and ignite a catastrophic explosion. Hoses snaked from the tanks to a gun-like wand, tipped with an igniter that sparked on command. The fuel inside sloshed with every movement, a ominous gurgle that reminded everyone of the volatile beast they carried. Flanking Reyes were Corporals Jenkins and Lee, weary infantrymen tasked with carrying spare fuel canisters and providing close protection with their M1 carbines. Jenkins, a farm boy from Iowa, cracked a weak joke about barbecuing some Krauts, but his laugh died in his throat as the order to advance came. The assault kicked off with a barrage of smoke grenades, launched by the platoon's engineers to cloak their movement. White phosphorus bloomed in the air, creating a swirling veil that stung the eyes and choked the lungs. But it offered precious concealment from the bunker's watchful gunners. Elias rose from the trench, his boots sinking into the quagmire of churned soil, and began the perilous dash forward. The ground was a nightmare landscape. Craters from shelling, tangled wire, and the bloated corpses of fallen comrades from previous failed pushes. Machine gun fire from the bunker erupted immediately. The MG-42s nicknamed Hitler's buzzsaws for their terrifying 200 rounds per minute rate, breaking the field with tracers that glowed red in the half-light. Bullets whipped past Elias, one clipping his helmet with a metallic ping that left his ears ringing. He dug behind a fallen log, firing back blindly, the Garand's sharp report joining the symphony of war ahead. Reyes and his team pressed on, weaving through the smoke in a low crouch. The sergeant's breaths came in measured puffs, his mind a steel trap focused on the objective. He'd trained with the flamethrower in the muddy fields of England, learning its quirks, the way the fuel mix could clog the nozzle if not agitated, the backblast that could singe your own eyebrows if you weren't careful. Now, in the crucible of combat, every step was a gamble. At 50 yards, a mortar round exploded nearby, showering them with dirt and forcing Jenkins to stumble. "Keep moving," Reyes growled, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. The bunker's entrance loomed larger now, a squat, fortified doorway embedded in the hillside, flanked by embrasures where gunners poured out lead. Shouts in German echoed from within, urgent and frantic. As the defenders spotted the approaching threat, the distance closed to 30 yards, then 20. Elias, from his vantage, could see the strain etched on Reyes's face, the beads of sweat carving rivulets through the black grease paint, the cords of muscle standing out in his neck under the weight. The flamethrower's tanks hissed softly, the pressure building like a predator's growl. Bullets pinged off rocks around them. Lee took a hit to his arm, blood blooming on his sleeve. But he gritted his teeth and kept firing. At 15 yards, Reyes dropped to one knee behind the lip of a shell crater, his assistants covering him as he primed the weapon. He adjusted the nozzle's aperture for maximum spread, flicked off the safety with a practiced thumb, and locked eyes on the entrance. "For the boys," he muttered, invoking the fallen. Before squeezing the trigger, the eruption was cataclysmic. A pressurized jet of fuel shot forth, igniting in midair with a deafening whoosh that seemed to vacuum the oxygen from the battlefield. The flame wasn't a mere flicker, it was a living entity, a roaring dragon's breath expanding into a 30-foot cone of incandescent fury. Orange and yellow tendrils lashed out, slamming into the bunker's facade with the force of a tidal wave. The heat wave hit Elias like a physical blow. Even from his position 40 meters back, he felt his skin prickle and tighten, the air shimmering as if the world itself was melting. The flames poured through the doorway and firing slits, defying gravity to seek out every crevice, fueled by the napalm-like thickener that made them adhesive and unrelenting inside the bunker. Pandemonium reigned. The German soldiers, veterans of the Eastern Front, hardened by Stalingrad's horrors, were unprepared for this infernal assault. The fire sucked away breathable air in greedy gulps, replacing it with toxic fumes and superheated gases that scorched throats and lungs. Screams pierced the roar, guttural cries of agony as flames licked at flesh, igniting wool uniforms and leather belts. One defender, a young Guelph rider manning an MG-42, felt the blaze flood his position. His ammunition belt cooked off in explosive pops, bullets spraying wildly as the gun barrel warped like taffy. Another group huddled in a rear chamber, praying for salvation. But the fire ricocheted off the concrete walls engineered to withstand bombs, but not this elemental scourge bouncing like deadly pinballs, setting off grenades and turning the space into a blast furnace. Elias glimpsed horrors through gaps in the smoke, silhouettes writhing in the illuminated inferno, arms raised in futile defense. One soldier burst from a side vent, his body a human bonfire, staggering blindly before collapsing in a smoldering heap, the napalm clinging like molten glue. Impossible to pat out. Bullets proved impotent. Rifles overheated in hands. Stocks charring. Barrels drooping uselessly. The bunker's interior amplified the nightmare echoes of cracking concrete, popping rivets, and the sizzle of flesh mingling with the flame's thunderous crackle. Secondary explosions rocked the structure as fuel stores and munitions detonated, sending tremors through the ground that Elias felt in his bones. Reyes advanced inexorably, step by measured step, sweeping the nozzle in deliberate arcs. His tank sloshed lower with each burst, the hiss growing fainter as fuel depleted. Jenkins and Lee reloaded him mid-assault, hauling fresh canisters under withering fire. Jenkins taking a flesh wound to the thigh butt, refusing to falter. The sergeant targeted methodically, first the entrance, then the flanking slits, then probing deeper vents with angled shots. Sweat evaporated on his skin before it could drip. His world narrowed to the trigger and the target. The platoon supported from afar, Elias pouring rounds into any movement, his rifle's clip pinging empty as he slammed in a fresh one after an eternity compressed into 10 brutal minutes. The bunker fell eerily silent. The flames dwindled to guttering embers, black smoke coiling skyward like a funeral pyre's sigh. Reyes lowered the wand, his chest heaving, and signaled the advance. The platoon crept forward, hearts hammering, navigating the scorched kill zone where grass had vaporized and earth fused to glass. Elias stepped gingerly over glowing debris, the heat rising through his boot soles. Inside the bunker, the devastation was absolute. Walls blackened and cracked, weapons melted into surreal sculptures. Bodies reduced to charred remnants, indistinguishable husks curled in fetal positions, faces erased by the blaze. The stench was overpowering, a miasma of burned hair, flesh, and cordite that clawed at the throat. As the sun crested the horizon, bathing the hill in golden light, Elias slumped against the bunker's outer wall, his rifle clattering to the ground. The objective was taken, a small victory in the grand push toward Paris. But the cost lingered in his mind. Reyes, ever the stoic, clapped him on the shoulder with a weary grin. But Elias saw the haunted shadow in his eyes, the burden of wielding such a weapon. In the years to come, after V-Day and the long voyage home, Elias would return to his Kansas farm, marrying his high school sweetheart and raising children under peaceful skies. Yet, the nightmares persisted. The hiss of tanks, the roar of flames, the echoes of screams. He'd wake in cold sweats, staring at the stars, wondering if the fire had truly been extinguished, or if it smoldered eternally in the souls of those who'd survived. War, he came to understand, didn't just scar the body, it branded the spirit, leaving marks that time could never fully erase.